Resources. The most limiting factor in Honkai Star Rail. They determine essentially who you're going to build, how long you're going to use them, and subsequently what teams you're using, because you really want to get the most value out of the investment you make. And a lot of individuals, myself included, who made the mistake of building a bunch of different characters at once. And I suppose pre-level 60, a lot of these characters and materials you're using don't seem that bad. Once you start getting into level 70, and level 80 characters, then it becomes a bit more of a hefty investment, and the resources you spent down here really come back to bite you. So whether you've summoned for somebody on the current banner or summoned for somebody on the last banner, I want to give you some general tips and advice for where you should spend your stamina pre-Trailblaze level 60, and then what you should be doing 60 to 65, because 65 is the last limit. Being blunt with you, you have a lot of options here, and prior to Trailblaze level 65, it is not worth it to farm relics, at least in my opinion. The reasoning is as follows. At Trailblaze level 60, you get 2 drops. At Trailblaze level 65, you get 3. 3 drops for 40 stamina is still a high asking price, but it's better than what you would have previously gotten, especially because no matter how much you farm, you don't get a lot of, I'd say, fodder artifacts or fodder relics, this being the 3 and 4 star pieces you're not going to use. So getting only 4 stars and removing that 3 star means the value for stamina and the value for resin increases much further, and I think it's a better value proposition at that point. But I understand, it's a lot to ask for you to wait to level 65, which is end game, to farm in the first place. So instead, I'd say at 60 you can make that consideration, but here's my limitations for you. You need 2 teams. This isn't 2 teams that can be kind of slid around where you want somebody like Tingyun in both teams and she occupies 2 slots. No, this is 2 individual teams that will not change. This means that you don't want to have your Yanqing, Tingyun, Bailu, and Gepard, as an example of this team, shifting over here. For instance, my Tingyun and my Bailu are here. That can't happen. You need 8 characters who, yes, can be shifted around, but 8 fully built characters who occupy their roles in that team. Yukong serves as a great example. Because she replaces Tingyun in one team, that means that Tingyun is freed up for whatever half needs or more, and Yukong can go in the other slot. If you have your Bailu, if you have your Luocha, then you can slide them in. If you don't, you can go with Natasha, or you can solidify this with a defensive option, whether it's Gepard or Fire MC. But either way, you need 8 characters. Build out 4 as a solid base team, as a base foundation, and then move on to another 8. And at that point, if you're wondering how to prioritize, Yanqing was my first DPS. This was my first team, save for Gepard. Fire MC was here, I just got him. I prioritized building out my Zila first, my Natasha first because I didn't have Bailu. So these were the 2 units I used for the vast majority of the time. My supports were iffy, and supports make or break a lot of your damage dealers. So your goal, first and foremost, will be to gear up 8 units. 8 consistent and solid units that aren't very niche heavy. If you got Silverwolf, she is a perfect example. Build her up first because she's so flexible. If you don't have her, build up whoever else would take that position in your team. Maybe you have Pela, maybe you have Yukong, maybe you have Tingyun, maybe you have Asta, it doesn't matter. Build them up regardless. Despite how I described it earlier, I still recommend going through Simulated Universe. This is not just to farm and get out the additional drops. Mind you, if you're somebody who is low on resources and do like playing this game, you can do Simulated Universe runs to get these extra drops each time. The relic experience and the credits may actually help you out, not a lot, but if you do it enough and consistently, these do add up and alleviate of the stress you may have later on. So feel free to farm this. But your main goal is to farm and clear out each of these individual stages so you can pick up these relics. Ignorant Salsodo. Even though you aren't spending stamina, these can be used for fodder. These can maybe occupy a slot in your team. Maybe you get an energy recharge rope or energy generation rope, and you can slide that over to your Tingyun, your healer, whoever needs it most. But that's just the free stuff or recommendations. What should you actually spend your stamina on? Well, I'm gonna be very honest with you on this one. There are 2 things that legitimately increase as you rank up. This being the relic drop rate and your character ascension drop rate. I get 5 drops per 30 stamina. This is actually decent enough, at least in my opinion. So if you're focusing on your characters, you can begin farming this out, but you want to use the Ascension Planner. I will link that in the description down below to find out exactly what you need. Outside of this though, where should your stamina be going if you already have, let's say, the materials needed for your Zila? Well, there's 2 places, trace mats and experience books. Credits are easier to come by, in my opinion, than experience books. Your limiting factor is going to be either your XP books or your trace materials, and I'm going to outright say this. If you are farming for any of these, ignore the purple one. You do not get the purple one. You get the blues and you get the greens, and that is it. You are going to rarely, maybe once a day, see 1 purple. It doesn't exist. Stop trying to pretend it does. You are focusing solely on everything else the game can offer you. Blues and greens. For reference, it takes 3 greens to turn into 1 blue, 3 blues to turn into 1 purple. So if you need 6 of these, you better get farming. These are open daily, unlike Genshin. But that also comes with the drawback of you never knowing exactly what you want to farm. So designate days. If you want to go and don't know what to farm at all, maybe you have your entire 8 characters built up, farm destruction for 1 full day. Preservation for 1 full day. Your goal will be to get a decent enough set to be stable long term. Experience books as well. Those two don't increase as you level up. I'm going to be honest, they say it does, it doesn't. No, you get the same drop rates. Unless they're increased, I'd actually recommend continuously farming these out regardless of circumstance. Your stamina is best spent pre-level 55 on experience and traces. Once you get to 55 to 60, you can make an argument for character essential materials. Once you get to 60 plus, then your arguments can be made for either relics or continuously farming these out. Outside of that though, it is just not worthwhile to spend it on relics, and that's a mistake I've made. If you look at my characters, my Zealot, she has 2-piece sets. She's fully built. If you look at my Yanqing, he has a full set. If you look at my Silverwolf, she has a full set. My Japard has a full set. I spent so much stamina on relics that I didn't spend them building out the trace mats, and I was low on resources to an extent to where I don't have the ability to get on my characters anymore because it's just so costly. And if you think you're good on trace materials, please consider light cones use the exact same as the character mats. Unfortunately, this means that you're kind of limited either way. If you have enough for traces, if you have enough for characters, you might not have enough for light cones. And unfortunately, there are so many different light cones, especially for harmony characters, that you may want to build up. Dance, 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 Memories of the Past, Carve the Moon, Weave the Clouds. You may want to build up so many different ones, and meshing cogs included, that you legitimately may have enough for the character, but not enough for the light cone. Especially if you're an individual who likes to swap them around. Maybe you have 2 Dance, Dance, Dances, and you kind of want to give one to Tingyun and one to Yukong. It creates a very big issue. Resources are heavily limiting, and I want to know, where do you think you made your mistake at? I made mine with farming relics way too early. I farmed my relics at like 55 or 50. So legitimately, for me, farming relics were the biggest resource expense that I had, and I could have been so much further without doing that. So either way, if this video helped you avoid that, go ahead, leave a like down below, consider subscribing and joining the server, and I will see you next time. Good luck in your Star Rail journey.